All right, good evening. Thank you for coming to the Souhegan Cooperative School Board meeting on May 8th. It's 6:02. And we have at least one person online. And I just want to check in with Raj. And just confirm that it was, I forget the exact word, but difficult for you to attend and you are alone.
Yes, starting a business is very challenging. So yes, I'm unavailable to be in person. I hope to be there next time, and I am alone. Thank you.
And Mr. Glover, I see you're online as well.
I am, and I have the same answer. I'm alone, and I unfortunately couldn't be in person tonight.
Okay, thank you. Before we get started, we are starting the process of affirming the agenda before we even begin the meeting, just to ensure everyone's looked through the agenda, and these are the topics we're going to discuss this evening. So I guess because we have people online, we're going to have a motion and a roll call vote. So can I have a motion to affirm the agenda, please?
Motion to affirm the agenda.
Made by Mr. Manning, seconded by Mr. O'Keefe, and can we have a roll call vote? Start with Mr. Gupta.
Yes.
Glover,
Glover.
yes.
O'Keefe, yes.
Run, yes.
Manning, yes.
Peter, yes.
Stroger, yes.
Thank you very much. And also, before we get started with public input, we're going to do follow the procedure that we talked about at the SAU meeting, where we will continue with our virtual process as we have done in the past. Now that we understand, we can quickly remove any people we do not that do not present themselves well at our meeting. We'll leave it at that. And we can do that quickly. So we will continue. And I think our motion last time was just for that particular meeting, so we don't have to, we don't need to make another motion to remove that process. And before we get started, one last thing, I just want to say thank you to all of our staff at Souhegan High School, at the SAU, and across all the schools at SAU 39. This is Staff Appreciation Week, and just want to take a moment to say thank you for all you do for our students, all you do for our community, and you are much appreciated. And please don't forget, we have our Staff Appreciation Breakfast tomorrow morning, and if you can attend, we'll be here at 7 a.m. to set up, and the teachers will probably start arriving around 7:30, 7:45, and all their staff as well. All right, so now we'll take public input. If there's anyone in the room who would like to speak first, they get first choice. And I see no one approaching the microphone. Do we have anyone online?
We have one person online, but at this moment, there are no hands up.
Okay, well, we'll give them a moment. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And then we can promote you to panelist. If you would like to say anything. But we don't see any hands being raised. All right, we will come back to the second public input at the end of the meeting. All right, first thing on our agenda is community council update. Maya.
Hi. First, I'd just like to say that I've appreciated the opportunity to serve you as your school board representative this year. It's been a very enriching experience, and I'm grateful. I'm excited to share that I've recently been elected as communicator for community council for the upcoming school year. As I transition into this new role, I will not be seeking re-election for my current school board rep position. So thank you for your support and encouragement.
Yeah.
On the community council side of things, we don't have a ton going on right now. We have forums coming up, I think, in a week. And then this past Monday, we had executive elections. So just a congratulations to our executive decisions. We have Lucas Steckbeck is the new clerk. I'm the communicator. The head SAC is Violet Quesnell, the vice SAC is Logan St. Dennis, and the treasurer is Grayson Daly. Yeah, and in terms of Souhegan news, we had the Performing Arts Showcase last night. It was very well put together, great performances, a nice range of different styles and
Great. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Maya for community council?
We have one
Mr.
question.
Manning.
So it's been 5 years since I've been on the board here the last time, but the titles for community council, do they change?
I do not answer that question. It's possible.
Okay, do you have Is there a moderator?
There was, oh yes, our moderator
Okay.
was selected a few weeks ago,
Oh.
and that's Owen Pazinski. I think I actually do remember there was a change to the student activities coordinator
They-
position. They added another one and they made it so there was like a head SAC and a vice SAC.
Do you want to describe what communicator does? Because I have a feeling that's something most people aren't familiar with.
So communicator, as communicates things about community council. Currently, they kind of help run forums. And the Instagram page, they reach out, to different groups within the school and the wider community to share about council. And they also are there, if anybody has any questions about council and feedback they have. Their position, and they're also on the executive.
Thank you for the explanation.
Awesome. Anything else? Well, great. Well, thank you and congratulations. And the election for the school board rep will be in the fall. Yes, with all student body, as required by RSA. All right, thank you. And up next, we have the math presentation. I don't know, Anne, if you're the only one or whoever else, come on up. When I'm coming to me. I think Steve has the presentation.
You can share that. I'm sharing it right now too with the board members. Appreciate it.
Before she starts, I just want to say thank you to Anne for her, for being here tonight, but for her leadership of the math department. This is exciting work. You've been getting, small updates, in the principal's reports, but this is going to be a really comprehensive overview of the work that has happened. I'm also really excited for this presentation because Anne has structured it around our data-wise process, which is something that the board's been hearing about for 2 years now. Just our approach to continual improvement of teaching and learning. So so you're going to get to see that process in real time and how it has driven the work of the math department. So you're in for a treat.
All right, we'll jump right in. Thank you so much for having me come and speak with you. I'm really excited to share the work our department's been working on this year. And if you wouldn't mind, Steve, jumping to the next slide. So as Dana said, the work we did this year in our self-study is really grounded in this data-wise process. It provides a structured and collaborative focus for us to do some really deep and challenging work, which we're excited to jump into. As you can see here, there's a graphic here that DataWise uses to really drive home this idea that it's an iterative process. This is not a straight line, and that we're constantly passing through 3 phases, a prepare phase, an inquire phase, and an act phase. Within that, there's kind of 8 steps that guided our work. So I'll share a little bit, trying to be brief, of our work along the way. At the 9 to 12 level, so the self-study was really bigger picture, examining whole programmatic instruction and curriculum, student learning trends, and department-wide goals. We've been using this data-wise process in the math department on a much smaller scale on a continual basis. Our 9th grade teams have been using it to identify any gaps that they're seeing or needs that they see in their students, identify what to focus on and some targeted responses, and then measuring progress. This year, they've been working extensively on, differences between simplifying expressions and solving equations and using this targeted approach for that. Our core 2 teachers have been using it to drive some instructional and curricular changes for our core 2 class in response to student needs that we've seen over the past couple of years. So although we'll be high level today, this process is kind of ongoing in our department continually. So first off, a little bit about the purpose of today's work, if you wouldn't mind, Steve. This work that we did is really a commitment to our district goal of improving student achievement in mathematics. It aligns with our school goals as well as our department goal. We always want to be helping our students improve. We want to improve our instruction in order to support them best. What I'm really excited about is I think this year we were in a unique position to start this work. Within the past 3 years, we've had 4 of our 10 department members retire. So although very exciting for them, there's a lot of newness in our department, which brought a lot of great perspective. So we have 4 teachers who have been with us for less than 3 years, and 6 teachers who have been here between 12 and 30 years. So we had a really great balance of institutional knowledge and understanding of what makes Souhegan a really unique place, but also new perspective. Those teachers who came to us recently have all taught in other school districts and bring really great energy and perspective and have quickly acclimated and joined our department and found a voice within that. So it's a really exciting time, and I think this was just a perfect time to embark on this journey. As we moved into the prepare phase, this was really about organizing ourselves for this work, as well as building assessment literacy. On our next slide, you'll notice a little bit about this year's work, as well as some future work. I won't go through everything on all these slides. There's a lot here. But I wanted you to have all this information. This year, to begin the work, we had to focus on creating that collaborative structure. Teaching is a super personal experience, so looking at student data can be kind of scary for teachers. There's a little bit of vulnerability there. So we worked hard at creating trust within our department. We established some shared goals, as well as some structured protocols, so that we could take an honest and evidence-based look at student learning, student data, and our instructional practices. It really allowed for some open conversations and to move past that fear and vulnerability. We started in earnest in the summer of 2024. So this past summer, we had 2 full days together as a department to determine those goals, as well as determine our shared data pool. So you might imagine when you ask a math department to decide what data they want to look at, that list was pretty extensive, like pages long. And there wasn't a lot of fear to jump into data, which is great, and a little overwhelming all at once. But what was also really, really helpful was the end of August, when we had our vertical collaboration day across the SAU. So the opportunity to put all the 7th through 12th math teachers in the same room was invaluable in grounding our work. We articulated a baseline learning progression of kind of the 3 key mathematical domains that span 7 through 12. That would be functions in algebra, geometry, and then probability and statistics. This really allowed us to ground our work in an understanding of how student understanding actually evolves over that time, and where we may need to more closely align between AMS and up here. So then throughout the year, we used our math department time. Luckily, we had about 2 hours a month, which was really great for examining data as well as instructional strategies. I'll share a little bit about kind of the assessments we looked at. So on our next slide, you'll see just a reminder that data comes in all sorts of forms, and we started by reminding ourselves of this when we decided what to look at. It can be helpful in identifying needs, tracking progress, and also evaluating effectiveness. So within a classroom, that might look like a pre-assessment to identify the needs of the particular students in front of you, progress monitoring or formative assessments and exit tickets along the way to measure the learning process for students, and then the end of unit assessment. Within a systemic examination, this would look more like identifying needs or universal screeners. So looking at the overall needs of all of our students, what are they coming to us with, and what do we need? Progress monitoring to track the implementation of our programs, and then the evaluation. Those would be our standardized measures, PSATs, SATs, AP, and of course scores. So we really wanted to be cognizant of looking at a lot of different types of data and using the data appropriately when we did. One of the first things that we did notice is that as a system, we don't have a universal screener. So that was a gap we noticed. And it's really important that in a strong data-driven MTSS system that we have all types of data. So you will see this idea of a universal screener a little bit later on in one of our action steps. As we jump into the inquire phase, moving from the prepare to inquire, you'll see there's really 3 pieces to inquiring: creating that data overview, diving into the data, and then examining our instruction. All of this is in an attempt to focus our questions and create some priority questions. What is it that we really need to dig into and take action on? In this inquire phase, we did identify an extensive data pool. To make it more manageable, we focused our attention on our core 1, 2, and 3 courses and the data associated with those. Those are the courses that the vast majority of our students take, so they are foundational for us. Although we have opportunities for student choice after core 2, currently this year's senior class, 94% of them will have gone through core 1, 2, and 3 and passed those courses before they graduate. So this felt like a really great place to start and to ground our work in being able to assess where our students are at, where we want them to be, and what we need to do to get them here. You'll see we dug into quite a variety of data pieces here. The first was about looking at students who were looking for additional challenge for our math acceleration process. We moved on to students who may need additional supports, looking at some NC data and learning commons data. And then we did a deep dive into our standardized testing in our PSATs, PSAT 10, SAT. We found that actually the most valuable conclusions and information we could draw is when we cross-referenced that with additional data. So looking at our PSAT scores and our SAT scores was helpful, but it was until we really started to look at that in conjunction with course enrollments. What courses are students in when they're taking these assessments? What is our curriculum as aligned to the PSAT and what they're assessing? And that was where we started to find some really actionable items. We have a number of things that we're still looking to do some work on. Wanting to include students in this process always. We did start our year with a math mindset survey, looking at trying to gather data about student attitudes and how their perceptions and what they believe may impact their achievement. We gave this survey to every student here who is enrolled in a math course at the beginning of the year. We got 694 responses. So we feel really great about that. That allowed our teachers to get to know their students quickly. And we will be following up with a post survey at the end of the year. So one of our summer items to start to analyze, what has changed and what does that look like over the course of the year? What influence have we had on that? And to cross-reference that with student achievement. Also, using our New Hampshire SAS data from our 8th grade, something we're just starting into, and using that to inform some decision-making about our 9th grade course for the next year in forward. We're excited about that, and you'll see that as an overall trend in a little bit. As we move through the inquire phase into digging into the data, this is where we really started to look across data sets, not just within one data set, in trying to look for trends. In our next slide, you'll see the findings from this analysis. You'll see some key findings, and those have led to some pretty deep wonders, which are guiding the priority questions for us. What we quickly found is that we have some gaps in our curriculum. Oftentimes it was in topics that tend to fall at the end of a course. So in time crunches, those topics were getting omitted, but unfortunately they weren't then getting picked up later on. And we found that they were showing up on assessments. We found out they were showing up in future courses, and students didn't have the background they needed. We started to look at the timing of when particular topics were instructed throughout the course of the year and how that might be influencing fluency. And with fluency comes deep retention of content. And we found we were also missing some of that. Topics covered in core 1 that aren't revisited in core 2, our students were struggling in core 3. So they may have mastered it in core 1, but they weren't able to retain it over the course of a long term. So this raised for us some really great questions. Why aren't students retaining those concepts? Is our current pacing allowing for fluency and deep content retention? Have our assessments and homework practices potentially shifted away from the research-based practice of spaced learning and mastery over time? It used to be something that we held really dear and near to our hearts, and have we strayed from that? Are our instructional resources, is CPM the best fit for us right now? And very concretely, are we doing enough to prepare our students for digital assessments? It's the way of the future. All of our standardized tests are now online, including APs this year. So what are we doing to help students prepare? These questions have kind of focused what we then looked for when we started to examine instruction. In our examining instruction, that was a quick slide. You'll see again a little bit of parallel structure here, right? In our next slide, you'll see this year's work and next year's work. We started our work with grounding it in John Hattie's research. This was about building a shared language about high leverage, high impact teaching strategies. Before we got into each other's classrooms, we wanted to have a common language, what we were looking for, what we were hoping to see, what we're doing in our own classes. So then we began with instructional rounds, and this was really fantastic. The department got into each other's classrooms. We used a protocol in order, again, to keep things not judgmental, but data gathering. So we were able to gather data about current practices, and it also sparked some really great reflective conversations. Throughout those rounds, as well as my frequent observations throughout the evaluation process, I have the privilege of getting into so many teachers' classrooms so often during the course of the year. It's one of my favorite parts. But it is very evident there is a strong, strong culture of collaboration and mathematical discourse in all of our math classrooms. Students are constantly asking questions, justifying their thinking, engaging in authentic math conversation. And it's not just with the teacher, it's not just a back and forth when the teacher asks them something, it's with each other. The teachers have also really worked hard to create a safe and supportive environment where students are encouraged to productively struggle and to take academic risks. And these are both keys in deep learning. We want our students to truly feel comfortable in the math classroom and to lessen that anxiety so they can be more open to their learning. Given all of that, oops, sorry, one more thing on that side. Given all of that, we're really excited in the future to reach out to some other schools. After having been in each other's classrooms and started this work about high leverage practices, we want to talk to some other schools around New Hampshire and Massachusetts and see what they're doing with what high leverage practices they're using that have created the greatest achievement and engagement for their students. We want to start that collaboration process and get outside of our home. So we're really excited about that over the next year or so too. So all of this data collection, whether it be concrete data or it be information that we gleaned through our instructional rounds, has helped us to develop some things. This is where that action phase takes place. We wanted to develop some short-term action plans as well as some long-term. We only have the privilege of having our students for a year as teachers, and as a school, we only have them for 4 years. We don't have the luxury of spending 3 years doing a self-study before we can implement change. We need to take action in response to the students in front of us. So in a moment, you're going to see some short-term actions. These are about building momentum within the school, addressing immediate needs. Then we have some long-term, and those are our more systemic and transformational change. So when we move here, you'll see 3 different categories, lots of aspirations for what we're going to tackle. Real quick highlights, our core 1 and 2 sequencing. We're really excited this summer to look at where that content is being taught within the course of the year and make some strategic adjustments to that in order for students to be able to build fluency. We know this is going to be definitely an ongoing event, an ongoing work. 8th grade has spent some time for the past couple of years piloting a number of different resources. So the work we do this year will be in response to the students we will be getting next year. So using their SAS data to inform the decisions we're making about the instruction for next year, knowing full well that after they've implemented their program for a full year and are no longer piloting, we might need to make some more adjustments. And that's on our radar. And so hopefully that collaboration with AMS will make that work even richer. In instruction, this idea of being more consistent and strategic in spiraling content throughout our courses to improve long-term retention. We want our students to have multiple ways and, to be encouraged to regularly engage with content in multiple different formats, but through a longer process. And then what we may consider some low-hanging fruit in terms of assessment, we have ways we can prepare our students for digital assessments. So we can start to use AP as a model. So digital assessment doesn't mean multiple choice, really rote questions. AP has a great model where they are still able to gather really deep data in a hybrid or an online format. So using some of that just for exposure for our students so that the first time they face that is not on a high stakes test. There's a lot more there, but keep it brief for tonight. As we look at some of our long-term adjustments, again, as a reminder, these are the transformational changes, really with the focus on sustainability, full-scale systematic change, and scalability. So being, really thoughtful about how we roll any changes out. One of the big ones is to take a really close look at our, current curriculum resources. CPM was a wonderful fit for us 10 years ago when we adopted it, and a lot has changed in 10 years. Whether it be the students in front of us, the educational landscape, the structures we have within the day, the time we have with our students. And so really taking a look to see, is that the best fit for us still? Or is there something out there that's better? Maybe it is, maybe there's others. So just being honest and really reflective about that, but knowing that's a longer term process. It's not something we can do over the course of the summer and be ready to implement next year. Continuing our work on high impact teaching practices, professional development, making sure teachers have the supports they need. And then this last column of collaborative growth is the one that I think is the most exciting. Engaging our students in feedback. We want to make sure that we're keeping students and their voice in these changes and how it's impacting them, and continuing the vertical alignment discussions. That's where we can make the biggest strides so that our students are seeing continuous and consistent supports from 7 through 12. So here, this second to last step is really about how we're going to assess any of these changes that we make. What's our plan for that? We want to measure the success of it. We know that we can't wait for the PSAT and SAT scores to evaluate instructional changes that are taking place. So on this next slide, you'll see some progress monitoring as well as some evaluating effectiveness. The SATs take place in junior year. If we make changes at core 1, we can't wait 3 years to see how that impacts our students. So we're going to need some more immediate and responsive tools. And this is where we're really excited about implementing the STAR assessments. This is a universal screener, which we are optimistic will also help us to progress monitor. It's much shorter scale. It's a 20-minute assessment. We're not taking a full day to assess our students on a standardized test. We're hoping that this will allow us to measure those cumulative review strategies. It'll help us to measure the sequencing that we're making adjustments to, as well as it provides us data on individual students. We can see and identify individual student learning needs, adjust their instruction accordingly, and then monitor their progress throughout the course of the year. So we're really excited about that and feel like that'll have some great traction here and help us to see what's working and to monitor that, as well as our end of the year assessments. We can compare assessments and unit assessments from this to next as we implement change. In terms of evaluating overall effectiveness, we'll continue to use those standardized tests so that we can compare data over the long term, both by cohort and longitudinally. And then we'll be able to use that also to track our digital assessment prep strategies. So hoping that we can take at least that one piece away from students. So, you know, like we take our PSATs, they take a practice SAT so that when it counts on the SAT, they've seen that format. We want to do the same for our students in terms of the digital platform. The very last step is step 8, which is really kind of a funny one because it seems like just one little step, which is act, assess, and adjust. It's do it. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is actually start to implement those action plans, assess them using the tools we just talked about, and then adjust as we see needed. So this is where that iterative process takes place. For our short term, we are ready to start the act and assess and adjust phase and start to implement some of those changes for next year. When it comes to the long term, we're still in, those are longer term scale. It will take us a little bit longer. We can't implement them by next year, but we're really excited about this work. It's been a really great year, and I know folks are already excited about some of the work we're doing this summer. So thanks so much for having me.
Awesome, thank you.
It was a lot. I'm really sorry, but I could talk for hours about this, so.
Oh, that's all right. So I'm gonna open up for questions. If anyone has questions they'd like to start with. Anyone? Mr. Randall?
Yes, sir. Hi. How are you? Oh, good. How long have you been with Souhegan?
This is my 19th year.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So how would you compare the math program today compared to where it was 10 years ago?
Sure. 10 years ago was the first time since I had been here that we had one consistent curriculum. It was when we adopted CPM as a curriculum and as a resource. Prior to that, we were making all of our own kind of content, kind of ad hoc.
Yeah.
So it was the first time we had consistency across the course, course like courses. So that was really great, and it was a huge stride for us at the time. And I would say then our priorities were collaboration, discourse, students working together, students problem solving, and kind of it's never been the idea of stand and deliver. I would say a lot of those practices are consistent now. I would say that changes that have taken place, as with oftentimes you have a curriculum for 10 years or a resource for 10 years, people have started to stray from those. And we've had changes in terms of like the schedule. So the amount of time or the distribution of the time, I think, is impacted how classrooms, how curriculum is, I don't want to use the word covered, how curriculum is being instructed on and what students are able to dive into. So I think there's changes that come with 10 years. There's also all the changes of like the inputs and the computers we have, and there's a lot more polls on our students.
It does. Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
My follow-up to that is, so so you've painted a picture of kind of like progress over 10 years in terms of developing a more codified methodology, right? There are some people that have been critical in town. They've used NEWA scores to say, hey, this town doesn't do well in math. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We all know that we've moved away from that, right? The NEWA test. So can you speak a little bit to math performance on NEWA historically, and what this transition means for the math program moving forward?
Sure. So NEWA was unique in that when our students took it in 9th grade, it was measuring 8th grade content. It was measuring 8th grade progress because they took it at the start of 9th grade. So then we would get it at 10th grade, which was really measuring 9th grade. So for us, I feel like our NEWA data gave us a picture of how our students were doing in 9th grade, and then it stopped. So since then, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, the only data point we had was PSAT and SAT. And so it was really hard to measure that progress for students. So what I'm most excited about in all of this work is really the grounding in multiple data points, since we don't have a lot of data, and to be able to have a consistent measure for all of our students to be able to use with the potential for STAR. There's a lot more to go. A lot more learning about STAR, and it's not the panacea, it's not an end all be all, but I think data is, and making our decisions based on data, the more data we have, the better off we're going to be in making them, so that we don't feel like we are just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. We want to make our decisions deliberately and thoughtfully, and so I think that is what my main goal is in this work.
Okay, I have one more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go
And it's
ahead.
probably not for you, but it's probably more for Dana or Steve or Mike, which is, so in light of that, the board is responsible for governance, setting budgets, looking at the budget that they present to us and saying, hey, is this good? Do we vote for this? Do we make trade-offs? So as we look at the math program, which is part of the frameworks of success, so the administration has placed a bet on, we're going to spend time and resources against this, right? What does the board need to be thinking about in terms of future investment? And if there were a significant investment we would need to make that could impact the criticisms that we're hearing, right or wrong, in the public sphere, what would those investments look like? And then potentially, I know this is a complicated question, but, and then potentially what, if we were in a situation where things were budget neutral, Dana, like, what would that, what would the trade-offs be, right, for us? If we were like, oh, wow, we really want to make this investment, this is really critical to a core tactic that we've decided is really important. Like, how do we make this big investment? And then what would be the trade-off in your mind? Or maybe that's Mike or Steve, I don't know, whoever.
I can start and then please fill in the gaps. So in terms of investments, as we continue through the self-study, my mind immediately goes to resources, right? Because one of the things that you heard Anne talk about is looking at CPM and its suitability for right now. So that wouldn't be for this coming budget cycle, it would be for the following, right? So we would want to forecast that out really thoughtfully and, because we need enough time to plan for it, you know, financially, but also enough time for the teachers to be able to implement it. I think another thing that's going to be, that we know is going to be transformational for this work, because math is a start early, stay long discipline, right? That the time that the district invests in professional development. So when Anne talked about that kickoff meeting in August, where 7 to 12 teachers could meet together, I think we're gonna see the need for increased time for that type of collaboration, but I know that that's a priority already for the SAU because they've told us as much, right? So I think we should prepare to see that. I don't know if there's anything else.
For me, it came up during last discussions with PPC, the teaching load is critical. You know, the 4.5, 4 is critical to allow real deep planning, deep collaboration. The investment in domain leads, we're seeing it, and we're seeing you, the time that you've had to do this deep work and to lead this deep work and collaborate on this deep work. As much as learning commons, the learning commons is heavy math, that investment in math and you know, that group. Tara's back there. You hear me? I said that.
Yeah.
So I think if to sustain as much as we can with what Dana just said, that some resource allocation towards, you know, the content, the curriculum, the resource, I think, but this board had, in the previous boards, under Mike's leadership and Dana's leadership, have put, I think, the resources in the right place. The biggest impact we know on student achievement is the classroom teacher. We're working on, right, the high leverage practices, and you're also supporting that with you're gonna have high expectations with the extraordinarily unique teaching load, right? I've said it a few times, that teaching load allows for high expectations and high return on that. And I think everybody, the teachers agree with that. I don't think those who are watching are saying Steve's a jerk right now. I think Steve's calling it like it is.
Other questions?
So I have a ton and Jim stole a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's awesome. And Mike, this is gonna be more directed towards you. I think Jim kind of really hit the nail on the head when we talk about community feedback about the school system. It really is all about the math program, right? It's the #1 issue that I hear about other than athletics. It's the #1 sort of thing that's keeping this district from being recognized as being one of the, if not the top institution in the state. And so last year, when we had this presentation, we talked a little bit about, okay, well, what are we doing to assess that? We talked a little bit about the data-wise process. How do we reanalyze? How do we go ahead and find issues? Do we go in and we modify, we correct? And we alter and we pivot, right? And you go ahead and you do all the things that you should be doing to make sure that the kids that are in each and every single sort of seat in our math program are getting the most and maximum amount out as possible. As a parent, I receive that feedback. I do, right? You get the results either from the NEWA thing, it gets sent home, SAT, I got an email there a couple weeks ago talking about where my students' sort of faults are and where the areas of focus need to actually be. But as a taxpayer and not as a parent of a student here, I get no lens into that at all. And I only see a result that comes down from the state and how we actually compare on a SAS score or an SAT score and how we're ranked against other districts. How can we take what you're doing now, other than tonight's presentation, and referring to saying, hey, at time, 9 minutes, whatever, how can we get that communicated out that we are making effective change? And I've got a ton of other things too, but how can we communicate that the success of our program is at the individual student level, even though it may not be properly reflected in some state randomized on one particular day, how our student population is doing?
That's a multi-layered question, and I think, this SAU has 3 districts and 4 schools, and I think us vertically aligning our math work with like the high school to AMS is really important in that bucket right there. And then at MB and in Clark Wilkins, aligning the work horizontally across there through the Bridges program, you know, and that started. And then right now, currently, you see AMS, you know, going through their own pilot program, 6-8, and making decisions on, you know, how they want to teach math there as it aligns to Souhegan's work and the Bridges program. And so for us, it's about telling the story. And I think, you know, you start to get a little window in our work, and we celebrate success. We update people on the work continues, we update the dashboards. I think connecting it to the framework, you will see more conversation around the framework being a bigger part of principal updates, school board meeting, and probably like op-eds coming out through the SAU office on the work around literacy and math. For me, there's a story that data tells, and I think years ago, we talked when I was principal of Souhegan, we said, we stay even with data. We stay even with our curriculum work. We do the work, we react, we make adjustments, respond accordingly. And I think that story connected to the framework, connecting to communicating it out, and creating a culture where there is growth. Because right now, you know, like I sit with all the same community members that you guys read about, right? And they have a story because of the way NEWA was presented, and that doesn't paint school in a favorable light. It just didn't, you know, and but so for us, it's you know, highlighting the work and telling the story, and I think that's where we start with what's happening, because right now there's a bunch of moving parts. You know, the work here, the work at AMS, the work at MB to, you know, Clark Wilkins, and I think that's how we intend on going about this work, because the good work is happening. And I think you're going to see immediate impacts. And I think that gets some momentum and small wins. But you know, I don't hide this, and this is a long answer. The lack in trust of, you know, the experts is something that this town struggles with at times, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? And so when we say this is how it is, and someone else has another data point that conflicts that, who is the authority on that? Is it the community member grabbing the story and putting it on social media and highlighting it or writing something? Or is it the principal and the domain leader, or the assistant principal, or the principal at Clark doing the work, right? And so that's part of getting that out there too. I mean, and if people don't want to admit that, that's not true, right? And we have to go establish ourselves as the people where you get the information from. And I've told Dana this, and I've told the other principals, having a little bit of success on some assessments and having a story and a presentation goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at.
And I think that's maybe one of the pain points for community members to come to us is that they're just not seeing it yet, right? And so whether it's on a yearly report that's coming out from Concord, or whether it's on some national, you know, educational, whatever that gets pushed out, they're just not seeing the positive things that you're talking about reflected in the quote unquote evaluation of what we do. And as a community member that doesn't have any kids in the system and can't see it firsthand, that's something we need to fix, right? We need to be able to share a more successful story and in terms of the power of your data-wise program, right? Because, and I want to pivot, if it's okay with you, real fast, because I know on slide number 2, you talked about the short-term adjustments, and specifically in the short-term adjustments, what did you implement this year versus our presentation from last year? And did we see any success in those short-term adjustments that they're now no longer short-term, they're permanent?
Sure. So in terms of the things so last year, one of the things we highlighted was our core 2 was really a pinch point for our students. We found that was the course where we had the most students who weren't passing on their first attempt through. And so that's why our core 2 teachers spent last year and this year really focusing on taking that data, acting on it in terms of clearly articulating learning targets and different achievement levels to communicate out to students, to make the curriculum more explicit, to make their instruction more explicit, and to make their assessment more explicit. increasing differentiation on the assessments to provide entry points for every single one of our students. And we've seen a decrease in our number of students with NCs in our core 2 class. So we are seeing those and using that as a benchmark. That was, our NC data is something that we look at very regularly within our STS, within our SST program, within the math department. We're always kind of looking at where our students are along the continuum throughout the year. We don't wait until just the end of the year. And we saw that that was where it is. Now we're seeing those numbers significantly lower in our core 2 class. So that process is working. And so we're seeing increased success in that course. We're seeing more access to that course. And so we're hoping that that will then continue on in core 2. We may have to make adjustments to the curriculum, the order of the curriculum, but those instructional changes, that grounding our practice and clarity and deep understanding both for the students and the teachers about what's expected. What does it mean to do quadratic equations? Being really clear and articulating what that skill looks like at all the different levels has yielded great success for our students.
And I've got 2 more things
Yes, go ahead.
specifically on that. So when I take a look and I want to pivot about the short-term adjustments over to your role as domain, lead, right? So can you walk me quickly through, we'll just call it hypothetical teacher A, right? Your, infusion into that experience that they're trying to articulate on a daily basis.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? What are you documenting? And then what conversation are you having with them? And then how do you measure success after you have that conversation with them at some point in time later?
Sure. I think I do it through 2 different ways because of the duality of this role, which is one of my favorite parts of it. I still get to be in the classroom. I am a part of our core 2 planning class. I have 2 sections of core 2. So I'm doing work with the other core 2 teachers as a colleague. And so we're doing this deep planning and deep work together. I then, so we have a weekly planning meeting and we're pretty much touching base every period 3 to see how students did on particular activities. So I get to do it from a colleague role in that sense, but then also in our evaluative role. So I am constantly touching base with, say, our core 3 teachers and talking to them about using a similar process of clearly articulating what we expect of students and how that drives all of that work. So I will push into their planning meetings and meet with them to see how that's going. And then I use that as jumping off points in our conversations through supervision and evaluation. So if I'm planning a formal assessment, that's an assessment where I'm in for the entire class period. We do a pre-conference, a post-conference, an observation, and then a post-conference. That work is driving the questions that we talk about in all of that. And I'm looking for evidence of that through it. So both authentically being a part of the work, but also using those through lines and the work I know that we're emphasizing through the supervision and evaluation. And then it's also a part of our department meetings. We have great conversations within our department and we spend department time doing this work, doing the deep planning so that I can be there a part of each of the conversations and make sure that we're all kind of in it together because we all have a common task and a common charge. The conversations are more consistent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 questions, I'll give you the easy one. What is a universal screener? I didn't catch that.
Sure.
Like, what
Yeah.
is their role? What do they do? And
Yeah.
what's the purpose?
A universal screener is a short, brief assessment you might give to all of our students. So we would give it to all of our 9th grade to get a feel for where they're at and be able to identify specific areas of need for our students so we can really tailor individual interactions, or not interactions, interventions and supports for each and every student. So it's really about making sure we know where every student is and making sure they get the individualized supports that they need. Within a tier 1 support system, we want to make sure we understand all of our students and we're not providing the same exact experience for every student in the classroom. We want to make sure we know them well.
So is this like a one-on-one thing or is this like a pop quiz? Like everyone goes onto, I don't know, some app and takes
Sure.
like
No,
25 questions?
not a one-on-one and definitely not a pop quiz, but it's not something they would study for. It's kind of like getting some baseline data
Baseline
for
stuff.
them. Yeah.
Okay. And then last question is for Dana. Dana, from a community member's perspective, if they were to go to you and say, please rate our math program on our 4 scale, what would you rate it and why?
What are the criteria?
Well, just like any other sort of grade that we give any of our students, right? So 1 through 4. Rate our math program.
I still think that I would need to know what the criteria are, as they have identified as we've identified through this process. Part of what we're doing with kids to ensure their success is to make really clear, what are we looking for you to do? How are you gonna know that you've met it? How am I gonna know that you've met it and where you need to go? So I think that's part of what you're talking about a little bit, is like, how do we make sure that the community understands the value? And like, is it this or this? And it's not a this or this, it's a yes and, right? It's a yes, you should care about the state accountability measures, and we should celebrate the successes of the core math 2 team decreasing the NCs, and we should celebrate the diversity in course offerings that we have, and kids understanding the value in an advanced math class beyond BC calculus, right? So we have to tell that story. I think we're a 3. You know, maybe I shouldn't answer that. I think we're 3. I think we're.
Get better when you said the others.
I know. I'm gonna tell you why. I don't care about the number. Once you put a number on something, people stop listening. They stop caring about the feedback that you're getting. So I'm doing it because you asked. But
It puts it into context of like, hey, I'm a community member, watch this video back because Steve O'Keefe told me to watch it, right?
Right.
So I'm watching it and I'm still maybe not comprehending everything that Anne's sharing, but from an administrator standpoint, like how do they view?
What I want people to know is that our students are performing above local averages. And that we're not satisfied with that. And we know that we want more, and we are working to get there in really meaningful ways. I would want them to hear that.
There's some very unique 4+ things in the department right now. The focus on HAT, the instructional rounds, the meaningful trust to look at data. So the foundation is 4. That, you know, they gave me a preview because I'm privileged and all that stuff. And they know how much of a Hattie person I am because it's proven, it's evidence research based, and it was a lead slide. So they're on the journey, and there's a lot going on, but the foundation work here is 4+, and where we are on that continuum, I think we're exactly where we need to be in analyzing where we were 10 years ago to where we are now. It's what we did with Bridges, saying it's the part of this work, and 4+ for the work and where we're at. And I am relentlessly optimistic and hopeful about real data, real success that's coming because of this hard work.
You know,
That's what I'm-
Stephen, what I also want to say is, this is my 4th year at Souhegan. It's my 4th year working with Anne, as the domain leader, and we are better and stronger than we were 4 years ago.
Yeah,
It's exactly what I want to hear.
100%.
Exactly.
And there's real evidence for that, in multiple data points. And the one thing, I mean, one of the first things I talked to this group about, and it hasn't because of things change, there's 2 ways to look at this: inputs and outputs. The inputs is Hattie, outputs is the assessments. We're making progress on both. The more Hattie stuff, the more, and you and I started, you know, for a cup of coffee when I was a real assistant superintendent, for a cup of coffee, we were looking at this.
Yeah.
So, no, inputs and outputs are absolutely both on the way up.
I've taken too much oxygen. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the effort and the time you guys put into this. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you. Very, very nice presentation.
Thank you.
How many people in your department?
There's 10 of us, including myself.
Okay, alright. The very data driven on this, you know, kind of aligns with the subject here, but as I understand is we're moving away from NEWA into a different program, it's STAR.
Yes.
Okay, is that gonna give us more data points to help with the baseline? Or what, I guess, what's the advantage that you see, if you're familiar with this, to move into STAR? Or looking back at past notes, vector or branching minds.
Can I talk a little bit about
You
this?
sure can.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about STAR because it's an SAU-wide initiative, right? So we're not just starting this at the high school level, it's a K-12 initiative, right? So you're gonna see it at the elementary level and here. And the benefit of it is it gonna give us more data it's gonna give us better data. It's gonna give us more usable data, right? Anne alluded to the fact that it's a 20-minute digital assessment. So the number of times that you can administer that, you could be getting more frequent data from kids along the way, which helps you calibrate your in-time intervention, your real-time interventions with kids. We've been talking for 2 years now, maybe 3 years now, about MTSS, a multi-tiered system of support, right? Having a strong universal screener like STAR is foundational to that, because it sets the baseline of who are the kids in front of me and where are they? And it helps you figure out, on a collective level where you need to go, but also really importantly on an individual level with where you need to go. And part of the problem with NEWA is it didn't serve that purpose. It didn't serve that universal screener purpose. The reports are super cumbersome. And so we weren't getting that out of NEWA. And like Anne said, we were doing it, you know, at the end, we're doing it just with 9th grade. That's not even our data at that point, right? So I think STAR is going to be really helpful to us as we work towards this framework goal.
Very positive, very good, and I challenge our board to think about how we go into the community with these data points. And what we potentially could see back, as you two gentlemen alluded to. So. That's it, thank you.
Okay. Let me check if anyone else, Ms. Peter, do you have any questions for? No. Raj, do you have any questions? We have,
No, thank you.
or John, do you have anything?
Thanks for asking. I'm okay at this time. Appreciate it.
Maya,
Yeah, I actually had a question for you, Anne.
Yeah.
As a student who I've accelerated through a course through Relax, I was just interested to know if there's been any sort of evaluation on how the content on VLAX aligns with the content at Souhegan. There are different programs. I was just interested in person sort of.
Great question. So the structure of the acceleration program, as you're aware, our format in an integrated program doesn't align perfectly with VLAX. So as you're aware, what we do is we offer students an opportunity to work through the competencies of the next successive course while they're currently enrolled. So did you accelerate through core 2?
Core 3.
Core 3. Okay, so can I use you as an example? All right, so mine was in core 2. And she chose to engage in our acceleration process, which meant that using VLAX, what we did is we sat down and we looked at VLAX and we determined what individual units would make up our core 2 course here, our core 3 course here on VLAX. So we tailor the work with VLAX to mimic the topics that we would have covered in our core 3 class. So then Maya engaged with core 3, those topics individually pulled together through VLAX. So it starts there where we work with VLAX to really tailor the courses that we're after, the topics and the units we're asking you guys to engage in. And one of the big things that we're most excited about in this math mindset survey, we have questions on there of exactly what you're asking. How well did students feel who accelerated? How well did they feel prepared for their next course? Because that's something we're really, really interested in. Not only do we have you guys take the complete units on VLAX, we also give them a final exam here during the summer to see how well they've retained that content, to really ensure that they're ready to go on to the next successive course here. And we want to make sure that you guys are prepared for that. So we do the work with VLAX in the forefront to determine which units align. But then this is where we're trying to gather your feedback is to see how well did you feel prepared. We do let our teachers know, anyone who's accelerated into their class, to keep an eye out and make sure that those students, if they do happen to have some gaps, that they can touch base with students, but it's one of the data points that we're excited to look at.
Great. Mr. Manning.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this a lot, but I feel, so this is more of a comment for the rest of the board, I think, and the administration. First of all, thank you so much. I love this stuff. You do such a great job and kids all love you and,
Take it, just take the love.
yeah.
Take the love.
I gotta remember which ones had you though. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Yep.
it's probably-
They all loved you.
You saved Jack, you helped him graduate from high school. My comment would be for the board is that, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record like this, and it was like this the last time I was on the board, is that you cannot know where you're going unless you declare it. You have to declare it. That's modern management practice, right? I'm big on modern management practice. because it's classically trained that way. So, for example, like you can't say we're going on vacation unless you declare you're going to the mountain, you're going to the beach. Gotta say it. So I know we have a workshop over the summer. And this board needs to declare what it wants from this math program. I think what you guys are doing amazing. But on our end, what the community is gonna want from us, and I don't think it's unreasonable, is for us to say, we want this high school to be a top 5 math program in the state. For example, I'm not saying that's it, but I'm saying we need to declare that. And the reason that's important is because it's not fair for us to not declare that and then come to you guys and ask you a question like, what kind of investments do you need? Because then you can't say, to your point, when you're asked like, is it a 3, is it a 4, what is it? You're like, I don't know, it depends on whatever it is, but if we come to you and say, we want this high school to be a top 5 math program in the state of New Hampshire. It's easier for you to then say, okay. We can do that in 1 year, we can't do that in 1 year, we can do that in 3 years, we can't do that in 3 years, and then we can say, well, what kind of investments do we need to make? What kind of trade-offs does this board need to make from a budgeting perspective to get there, right? And that's on us as a board. That's on us. That's something that I believe that, like, you guys can't do it all on your own. You guys need us to help you do that, to get there, to enable that to happen through our function as a governing function, as a budgeting approver in consultation with our superintendent. So that's just something that I think we need to think about as we head into June through July, so that you guys have what you need, right? That's all I'll say. Not to stand on the soapbox, but
No, Jim, I appreciate that take in the sense of, years ago when we asked the board to support the move to domain leaders away from the dean of faculty model to the domain leader model, was a first step for us to do this. And it's allowed us to do this work. I recall sitting there thinking about this and then, hiring Dana as the dean of faculty and hiring Elizabeth and hiring Ann to be in these roles. They had conversations is when you're supported by the board, you have to deliver on the aspects that Dana was talking about. The process that you go through has to be better and the outcomes have to be better. And the work here, over the past 4 years, I clearly think we are in a better spot, not only in math, but in many places throughout Souhegan because of the decisions that were made by boards years ago. I do believe that. And I think the expectations can be high. Right? You're never gonna sit here, Jim, you guys are gonna declare, hey, I want to be a top 5 math school, but we're going to just try to deliver on the promise kind of that we made to ourselves and our kids and our families, that we are going to be doing the best work that we know how to do as educators. And I keep going back, Steve's pretty good about reminding people, we have pretty good tables that we sit at with, our administrator teams, our building administrative teams, and they have great rapport with their teachers and their staff to get this work done. So for me, I'm very optimistic that if we just stay the course, we keep the same people at the table, we keep doing this work, the results are going to come by just doing good practice. And, but the declaration, I can see kind of like helping the community understand where we're going and why, if we do ask, or we do shift things around, to get in that direction. So I appreciate the conversation around this and good work. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
I feel like I should applaud. Feeling it. That's all.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so moving on, consent agenda. We have a few things on the consent agenda. I'm just going to go down each one, see if anyone has questions, so we can make sure we get some answers to those. Draft minutes. We still have 4 at the table, right? Yeah. Like,
You get a ding ding for that. Just so you know.
Running out of people. Draft minutes, any questions, anything want to be pulled? The first budget transfer, that's listed of 006. That one is, the additional door access card replacements for staff and students. I believe there was a question on that one, and if someone could just speak to, and we don't have Dana right now.
It's security, shouldn't it be a non-public?
Well, yeah. I think the part of our students using the cards,
Pretty public.
I think we need to have that conversation. I think that's okay to have in public.
It's not double secret probation.
Because kids all have the cards. The question is, is this actually being used at this point? Why we, we can talk to how that's happening in the school now.
Yeah, so this is, cards were purchased in the beginning of the year for students to use. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of lost and damaged cards, throughout the year, so the tech department there are no additional cards, so they needed to order a new box, to be able to create more cards to be available to the students. So, and you see this as a budget transfer because it's budgeted in a shared account in the 2660. So, which is a shared account between facilities and technology. So it's being brought to the board because it's a transfer from the 2800s, which is tech, to this shared account, 2660.
So I think in response to your question, Mr. O'Keefe, I have a feeling we're going into a non-public anyway because of personnel that we might be able to cover.
Yeah, I prefer
questions.
to.
We can
to do
ask
that
those in
for
non-public, so we'll make sure we address that as well in the non-public. So we might pull this one, I think, rather than approve
That'd be
it.
great.
Okay, so we'll make sure we pull that one.
Because of security.
The second budget transfer is to cover the increased participation in CTE programs, legal fees, copier, yeah. Incredible, 17, yeah. That's increased. How many students do we have? Is 42, 43 still? Is that what it was this year? I believe.
Doesn't say it.
Yeah, it doesn't say in there, but I think it was
That's the
when I
issue.
did
Give me
the,
an issue.
yeah, it's a 42, 43.
Yeah,
So any questions on that budget transfer?
Relating topic with that, after the meeting, if I can get somebody about CTE and curriculum, what's going on to that?
Yeah.
Love to learn more.
Okay,
Happy to chat anytime.
we can do that. Then there is a donation from Avtron Power Solutions. We want to say thank you very much for your donation. For our first robotics program, anything that supports the students and especially, at a nice dollar amount, and we greatly appreciate. So thank you to Avtron. And there's also another donation, yes, from Marilyn Fugini. And Stephen Smith. We appreciate their donation to the first robotics program as well. So if I could have a motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 3, and 4.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. O'Keefe. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? And if not, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Gupta,
Gupta, yes.
Mr. Glover,
Glover, yes.
Keith, yes.
Run, yes.
Manning, yes.
Peters, yes.
Sturger, yes.
All right, thank you very much. Those pass. Reports received. We have a facilities report. Thank you to Roger. Are there any questions on that? And treasurer's report. We have in here, and thank you to CJ for all her hard work and continued work. And there's also the student and athletic handbook change memos. Are there any questions on those? Good. Okay, nothing. And then the food service memo is in here. I don't know if anyone has questions on those. I actually have 2 questions if no one else does. Hopefully not.
Yeah, and I wanted to speak to that as well, but.
You want to? Why don't you go ahead and speak to it first?
Okay.
You can find all.
Yeah, so, Crystal did a great job of, putting together a comprehensive memo just to provide the board with an update on all things nutrition services. So she has, some financial projection in here, which I'll speak to a little bit more in detail. She has some information at the back end on the cafeteria and, looking at, hopefully some ways to make some improvements there. But that is still in its early stages of planning. I'm gonna speak a little bit about the equipment, and then a nice opportunity for Mark Newton, who is our kitchen manager, to attend, some training over the summer. So those are kind of the highlights of her memo. I did want to speak to the financial aspect. So, food service at Souhegan High School is always a challenge to break even between revenues and expenses. It's just, there's some challenges with that happen in part due to the students being able to go off campus. So it's always somewhat of an uphill battle. There's some things we're gonna take a look at this summer, potentially looking at increasing pricing for a la carte to potentially bring in some new revenue, but we're not sure how that will play out. We'll do some more work to take a look at that. We do budget for a $15,000 general fund transfer, so that was included in the budget. So that covers most of the shortfall for this year, with the exception of that dishwasher replacement that we discussed during the budget process. So, at the writing of this memo, we're unsure if there would be funds available at the end of the year for end of year projects. At this point, I'm not projecting there to be funds. However, I had asked Roger to take a look at his projects that the board approved to be funded from the expendable trust fund. And he's done a really good job of negotiating those, the pricing for those projects. And as of today, he is confident that there'll be enough savings in those projects to be able to fund the dishwasher replacement. So next month, I'll be bringing forth a memo for a public hearing to have the board approve not changing an increase in the expendable trust fund request, but rather just adding this project to that, to the list of projects. So that was some positive news that came through. Something else that came up during the budget process was taking a look at the funding of this long-term kitchen equipment. So in looking at the existing capital needs analysis plan and capital improvements plan, there actually is kitchen equipment replacement incorporated into the existing plan, but not until FY31. So Roger, Crystal, and I have a scheduled day retreat this summer to take a look at all of the kitchen equipment needs over the long term and build that into the existing expendable trust fund replacement plan and bring that to the board for approval at a later date. It's just too difficult for the kitchen, the food service operations budget to be able to fund these larger replacement costs. So that's our short-term plan to get the dishwasher in place, and then our long-term plan to try to fund those replacements over time with our existing expendable trust fund.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions?
Do you want me to share first?
Go for it. You go ahead.
So the steamer, that's on,
Yeah,
back order.
yeah.
Is there a way that we could swap that out with the dishwasher and then put the steamer into next fiscal year?
So the steamer,
Or did we already pay for that? Yeah, in our memo, it says the purchasing of the steamer has been delayed till,
till next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we've already allocated funds for it though.
We do have the replacement equipment in the budget,
Mhm.
but
You've already accounted for that.
it never is, it's just never a reality. I mean, we end up, it's just, the steamer is less expensive than what we have budgeted. I think we have 20,000 in there, but we never are able to realize the revenue, even though if we cut costs, we're never able to realize the revenue to fund all of the costs.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with food service.
Mhm.
So even if we cut our costs, we still don't have enough revenue to cover those costs.
It's not a self-sustaining program,
Yeah.
it's subsidy.
So we would be looking to potentially fund all of those long-term replacement items out of inside of the trust fund.
And I know we're seeing an increase in costs,
Yes.
increase in food costs and
Yep.
things. And I know we don't change our prices in the middle of the year. We don't tend
Yeah,
to
well,
try and change prices. I just want to make sure we're setting our prices enough that we're covering our food costs. I mean, that's,
She reviews it every summer.
yeah,
Make
So that's because
recommendations.
that's gonna be part of our retreat also, to look at
and then
increasing
and then informing our family
charges.
Yeah,
Remember, it's highly regular, crazy,
Okay.
regular, even the amount you could increase.
right.
So it's
That's,
related
that's
to
why
the
I'm like,
reimbursement.
even though, you're right, it's
It's
related
related
to the reimbursement rate, but
Yeah.
if
Can't
our
be
food
certain.
costs start
Hopefully-
skyrocketing, then you're gonna and be in a negative no matter what.
And we're gonna, yeah, we'll focus on looking at the à la carte.
Do you know if Mark's gonna be running any specials about advisories end of year and stuff going to Chick-fil-A? They go to him and
Yeah,
do like a Souhegan
He
for
tries.
He
it.
promotes, he really does
does.
market really well, but
Yeah.
it's getting people to grab it, but he does market.
He does,
Yeah.
so.
And I just want to ask about the vending machine. So I know it says, we're receiving, revenue. It's great. We said that.
Yeah.
How much do we pay for the vending machine? Do we rent the vending? How does that work? So we're making money, but are we recovering
Yeah,
the cost?
yes, yeah. And Crystal is looking into, potentially an additional.
That's why I want to make sure we are recovering our
Yeah,
costs.
we wouldn't do it as a loser.
I'm just like trying to understand, like, do
Yeah.
we rent them? Do we buy,
I
like,
think nowadays they give you just have to agree to buy, from them.
Yeah,
got it?
So it
Yeah.
comes out of there.
And they supply the food into it and that's what we pay for.
I think that's what it was the last.
yeah. There's different
generation
models.
in my- in
I
my
just wanted to make, yeah.
There are different models where we can put our own food in there, and so, Crystal does do a lot of research on trying to find, ways for additional revenue.
Yeah.
And vending is one of them, so.
I noticed that Crystal has invited us for lunch, and this
Yes.
is not the first time she's
I
invited us
know.
for lunch.
We would love to have you for lunch.
We should.
I'm free the first week of June, pretty
Okay.
much every day.
All right.
I'll join you sometime.
As long as it's pizza day.
I mean, are we all
Yeah.
going together? Are we coming one at a time? Can we come
Whatever you
every
want.
day in June? till
Whatever
the
you
school
want.
year ends? We'll just keep, if we all buy lunch at the school, we could,
Subsidized
Pump the
increased
revenue.
revenues.
There you go.
You're my
We'll
favorite.
take it.
No, they're on. It's just.
Okay.
they're.
Do you want it up there? Do you want it up there?
No, it's.
No, just, we just want to make sure that
Want to make sure they're still
if Raj and John have any questions that
Yeah.
we're.
They're here, but I took it up because of the presentation, but if you want it up there, I serve with the pleasure.
I have a question. It's my turn.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Glover.
On the food service, Amy, I know this food service is its own separate budget category in our budgets, and it's very separate from our general fund. Is there any issue with tying food service related durable parts like dishwashers and steamers and other equipment like that into our general capital maintenance trust fund? Or do we need yet another one unique for food service to not mix and mingle things that are otherwise very strictly separated?
Oh, yeah, no, there is no problem, having kitchen replacement equipment funded from the capital, maintenance expendable trust fund.
Okay, good. And I'm just for the general motion for the record, I'm in support of that. I've been in support of that for lots of things that have long lives. So I appreciate the effort there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll bring back more information once we, get it fleshed out.
Okay. And just one more comment. It's actually on the school athletics thing. It's not a substantive comment other than the letterhead has got some kind of weird formatting for the leaders' names and their titles. They're kind of offset, unlike the letterhead for the high school and unlike the letterhead for the SAU 39. So someone might want to take a look at that and just clean that up, just so it
Thank
looks tidy.
Yep. Yeah,
very on.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the letterhead.
okay. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks.
All right,
I'd like to suggest if anyone's free that we Me, Crystal, for lunch the day of our next meeting, June 5th. I'm free.
I will probably be in. For the last one, but I can't guarantee.
Welcome.
As long as we all buy for Mr. Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Meals
And it may
last
just
week.
be that we can't quite arrange to do it all
Well,
at
you
the
guys-
same time, I don't know.
Okay, that's not a bad idea. then, is
Closure
it?
thing, but,
Yes, transparency and
I'll
not
just
gifts.
put it in.
I'm certainly free.
We'll put out an
email.
email to see if we can get others.
Yeah.
Others involved. All right.
I think Mr. Manning's free.
All the time. It's me and my dog. Computer screen.
Oh, boy. Okay, moving on. Field trip. There's the BIOS field trip form. This is what, third or fourth year they've gone? And the students really are truly engaged. They're learning some research procedures. They get, exposure to environmental issues, ocean issues, and I don't think I've ever heard one negative thing ever come
It's a
back
really
from
great trip.
this.
I move to approve the field trip as presented.
You have a motion from Mr. O'Keefe. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Manning. Thank you. Any other conversation on that one? And if not, we'll take a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Gupta,
Gupta, yes.
Mr. Glover,
Lover, yes.
Mr.
O'Keefe, yes.
Grund, yes,
Man, yes.
Peters.
Stroger, yes.
All right, thank you very much. And the principal update. Dana.
Hi. I feel like everybody has already heard me talk enough, but I'll give you a couple quick updates. We are currently, continuing the work that we're doing with our master schedule. We're in the build phase, so, that involves a lot of, kind of verification and revision, and we hope to continue on to load some students in next week, so that'll give us a really good idea about our match rate and more details there. We are also in the midst of AP testing, so that goes on all this week, all next week. That we have, starting last year and continuing to this year, we've increased the number of students sitting for the exams, which is very exciting. Today was our last senior project panel meeting until the public presentations.
What date?
Please mark your calendars
Yes,
for
what
the
date?
29th and 30th. If you can come see, I think you can expect to see some presentations that have a different format than you might have seen in the past, because we have opened it up. But really remember, the kind of hallmark of the changes that we've made this year to senior project is about the journey. It's a much more self-directed journey for kids with their project. Really encouraging and supporting and sometimes forcing them to be leaders of their own learning. So that's really exciting work. D1 roundtables for our sophomore students are starting. It's like crazy to believe that it's already happening, but there's 5 weeks left, so that's getting started. Summer work is being outlined by teachers right now. This year, all the work that we're doing is aligned to the framework and the building priorities, which is great. In my last board report in March, I talked about our partnership with Getting to Why, which is an evidence-based program that empowers youth and adult partnerships to explore and take action on our local YRBS data. So on March 12th, a team of our students and some staff members went and got trained in how to analyze YRBS data. And on Monday, May 20th, they're holding their action plan retreat. So they've broadened the pool of students that are involved in that work. So they're going to come together to continue the analysis of the data, to identify some opportunities, some gaps, some needs, and to draw up an action plan. And then in June, we will host a community panel meeting where those students will present their findings and the action plan. So that's really exciting. We don't have a date yet for that June date, but I will keep you apprised of that. It will be something that we definitely advertise. The last thing that I want to share, because it will be shared widely tomorrow in our social media and in our Scoop newsletter. But it just became public yesterday that Kason Fox has received a National Merit Scholarship. So huge deal, less than 1% of seniors in the country getting that award. We're
Congratulations.
super, super proud of him. And it's gonna be very exciting to continue to follow his journey. So
Mhm.
Wow.
you'll see some stuff on that. But that's it. Happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
All right.
I have a
Anybody here?
question and a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Glover.
The question is, do you know what the participation rate is for the YRBS and broken down by grade?
Yes, I do, but I do not have it right now in front of me, but that's something that's easily accessible.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to understand that. And then
Mhm.
my second one isn't really a question, it's more of a comment. I happened to be in the school last week for a non-board related reason during the day. And it was just really cool to see. Hadn't been there kind of walking around in a while, and just to see, I don't know, this just fluidity of classroom activity and students in small groups and some of them alone in their little nook studying, and teachers and everybody smiling. I mean, it was a pretty incredible place you got there, Dana. And I'm glad that you're running that ship like you are, because everyone seemed to be doing what they were supposed to be doing, and it felt really good to observe that. So kudos for making that operate as it is.
Thank you. This is, I'm really excited for everybody read the Scoop tomorrow. There's gonna be so much good stuff in it, but it talks about it takes a village. This is community from the board to the SAU, to the teachers, to, Brad and Elizabeth and Ann that you saw here tonight, to the kids. We're all very lucky to get to be a part of this place.
Amen.
Great. Anyone else have anything for Dana? No. Nope. All right. Well, thank you. And yes, I think most of it, all of us will echo what Mr. Glover said about the hard work and the engagement. And when you do walk in the school, you definitely see it, and you feel it. You feel the vibe. So thank you for all that hard work. All right, end of year financial projects. That's
Yeah.
easy.
Okay, so I'm gonna start actually with the projections, which will eliminate most of the need to talk about projects, but at least we can have them on your radar in case things change. But in looking at the year-end projections, for revenues, we are, if you can ignore the food service because they pretty much balance out, but we're projecting not a lot of increase in revenues. We do have some increases in tuition, and there's some custodial staff that is being used by Mount Vernon, so there's some additional revenue there. Our special ed aid came in a bit lower, not drastic, but we have a loss of 8,500. The biggest decrease is in Medicaid reimbursement. If you remember, we went to a new Medicaid reimbursement company. So I am cautiously optimistic that we will receive those funds prior to closing the books this summer. But I just did want to project the reality of that. So revenue, if you don't look at the food service, we're about even with what was budgeted. For the expenditures, we do have some savings. Again, take out the food service, so it's about 569,000 in savings, which is modest. It's less than 3%. It's about 2.6%. The areas where we're seeing savings is mostly due to salary and associated benefit savings. 403B, where folks haven't elected to participate in that, and changes in health insurance elections that are not known prior to the budget. We do have some related services expenses, some savings there, some professional development savings that we are required to budget for, but have not been utilized so far. In transportation, we have some reduced routes and some special ed transportation savings. That is offset somewhat by the increased need for CTE transportation and some and budgeting for a monitor. And I think those are really the major categories. So as of right now, we do have funds, good news, to fund the warrant articles that were approved. So we are projecting to be all set for that. We are not projecting right now to fully meet the tax effort offset. It is still early. I will say we're very conservative at this point. We're working with the building staff and SAU administrators to release encumbrances and close out POs and try to make sure everything that is needed on the other end is encumbered. So it's not a terrible number at this point. I suspect it will get better, but just want to show you where we're at right now. It's possible, if the board so chooses next month, if these projections look similar, it's possible to potentially use the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund to fund some costs that were incurred this year that were unanticipated. So that is a possibility. So we'll have more information on that at the next board meeting. And as these numbers get, as we get closer to the end of the year, the numbers do get clearer. So, and as I said, we are typically very conservative. So barring anything crazy that happens before the end of the year, I would expect this loss in offset in the tax effort to look better. So with that said, we can talk about the projections first if you want, and then move to projects. If you have questions on projections, we can do that, and then I can move to the projects, which at this point I'm not recommending that you do projects because there is no funds to do them. So
Yeah. Mr. O'Keefe, go
I
ahead.
did have one question about the monitor. Is that more of a middle school expense versus us, or we're just sharing it because?
no, there is a monitor. It
Yeah.
just it was budgeted differently. So now we're calling it out where it needs to be. So it was
Okay.
embedded in a special education budget, and now we're calling it out. So,
Okay,
so I've called attention to it.
okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions? No, I think those are all the questions. That's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
I have a, hold on a second. I have a questions about the potential projects, which is, I mean, none of them seem to be like emergencies, like something very critical broke and we have to fix it right now. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, we did some work to categorize these by the different levels, like, which is what we did last year as well. So level 1, safety and efficiency. So I would
Yeah.
maybe let Steve or
Well, I
Dana
just
talk
wanted-
about the,
Yeah,
But I
so,
hope-
but John, before we get into any details, we literally have no money to even spend on these projects. So
Well,
I
it's,
don't.
but I have a point where I'm going, Stephanie, if I can just get there. I mean,
Okay.
none of these prevent us from operating the school. It's really, unless,
Right.
okay,
Right.
that's good. That's good. And so therefore, should we, seems to me, we should seriously consider incorporating these into our capital reserve fund projects so that they can be properly maintained in due course and added to the schedule. I mean, are these
Added to
outside of
property
that?
maintenance wherever it needs to be is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Maintenance
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
right. And because they're not exigent, it seems like we have a little time. We could stitch that in and talk about them, maybe with Roger's help, and where they fit into the schedule and determine what our ask next year will be for that warrant article that I presume will be on the ballot again.
Yes.
so I can add a little bit to the athletic pieces that are in here. So there is work that Kelly Briley is doing in conjunction with Roger, and this summer we the three of us will also have another retreat to take a look at the long-term needs of the athletic facilities and explore different ways of funding those long-term needs. So that will be additional work that will come to the board. I know that was a conversation at budget time as well. The room dividers, the board did approve a couple of those to be funded out of the capital reserve. So this is just additional ones just to move the process along faster, but there will be two or three of those, I think, funded out of the capital needs. Is that right? Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, the others are relatively small requests.
Yeah.
And things with the fund balance is just a projection and it's a complicated projection. Amy works with her team, so we do want to present just some insights to you in case there is some fund balance. Because remember, if you do decide to exceed your amount back to the town for tax rate, that impacts your tax rate next year. So we're trying to give the board as much information regarding possible contingency plans, but Stephanie, you're right. Right now, the projection isn't that there's going to be funds available, but this is a process we do with all districts at this time of year. So the board can make decisions regarding the tax rate, the projected tax rate, the future tax rate. But many of these were in the budget and didn't make the budget, which is the process we do. And then typically you don't put things less than $10,000 in the CNA CIP. You can, but typically you don't because that's a right. The CIP actually is regulated 10 plus more years, $10,000 ish, right? I'm an ish person, all that stuff, but
they could be thrown to a maintenance plan in the budget. Yep.
we're trying to be as transparent and forthcoming with as much information for the board to make a decision when they're ready as we can.
Thank you.
That's the goal.
Yep.
So definitely more information next month with some potential decisions to be made.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much for that work and yeah, we'll keep paying attention. Yeah, come back next month. Board correspondence, this is just that spot that if there was email sent to like all us as a board, that we would address it and just make sure it gets covered and everyone sees that it's here, but I don't believe there was anything sent to us as a board as a whole, so we'll move on. The general program assurances. So these are the general assurances that usually come out every year that the board chair signs along with the superintendent. There were some major change, I don't know, there were changes to it. It was somewhat significant. They were thrown in here earlier this week. They've since been taken off. There was an advisory from the New Hampshire School Board Association to hold off on signing them until closer to May 20th timeframe. Just because it gives everyone a chance to look at it, ask questions, make sure they have a chance probably to, talk with.
Some litigation too.
There's litigation, because it does start adding some Title VI stuff back into it, that if your board didn't sign the Title VI, or the superintendent didn't sign the Title VI, that's now some stuff's been embedded in here. Mike did sign the Title VI stuff, so we don't have that piece to worry about. But there is a lot of language changes in here, so I did ask Mike to add it back or send it out to everybody so you have a chance to look at it. I've read through it. There are questions I haven't typed them up for Mike to look at yet, just to get some clarifications. So I want you guys a chance to also have a look through it.
We'll share it out tomorrow morning, the general assurances, but looking possibly at getting a meeting prior to the SAU meeting in May to make a decision on general assurances. Or that week, if that day doesn't work. So more to come on that. We'll share that out. We're just kind of waiting to see how the advice comes in from the Superintendent's Association and the School Board Association. And then we'll keep you guys updated on that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
And when you do get it, when you read through it, if you have any questions, feed them through me, because they might duplicate questions I already have, and I don't want to inundate questions that might be.
If the timeline of the SAU board meeting is acceptable, there is specific thing in the meeting policies for the SAU board for caucusing.
Yeah.
And so we can just put it on the agenda for the SAU board, each individual board goes out and caucuses whether or not they're approved or not. And then it just takes care of it, not to set a special meeting.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, might be the solution for us. We'll, we'll get the right wording on that, and thank you for pointing that out. Appreciate it. So yes, when they do come out, please take time. They're a little lengthy. That's front to back. So, takes a while. Tuition. So the tuition student status, this is just the update that we get every year. And then Mr. Chamberlain?
Yeah, I'll speak.
Or Dr. Chamberlain, I'm
Either-
sorry,
either's
I'm
fine.
not used to that.
It's all good, thank you. Yes, Dana and I have met and she and her team. So what, this is by policy, we review to ensure that all students that are on tuition basis are in good standing. And we because it is not, it's guaranteed for a year, right? And just some quick stats. We have 6 tuition students at Souhegan High School, 5 involved in the employee tuition program, children of employees who live in another town, and 1 involved with an articulated agreement with another district. So those are the 6. They're in good standing, and we appreciate just if there's specific questions, we go non-public, but all according to our wonderful principal, they are in good standing, and our wonderful school counseling director. So that's it, just, unless there's questions, we're reaffirming their tuition status.
So you need to vote on that to reaffirm.
Okay, a sense of the board is fine, but if you want to take a formal vote, it wouldn't kill us, but
Yep.
it's fine. Since
Right.
motion made. To continue the tuition as presented by the assistant
Do
superintendent.
we need, I mean,
You don't need to.
I don't think so.
You don't need
I
to.
was just asking something like, I don't remember for like
No.
motioning, just,
We just review and advise
That's
the
what I
board, we
thought.
continue
Okay.
the process in good standing.
so if there's any questions, we would pull that until non-public
Start having
conversation.
motions when we're not in good standing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I have just a comment then. I mean, I'm okay with that as a process, but I just wanted to note the summary abstract says that the board needs to approve the list. So if it's true that the board just needs to hear about the list, and then, I mean, maybe just be careful with that way of presenting that in the agenda, so it's just not confusing.
I think that's where my question would come
I
from.
think another important thing to note for the public that the 3 people that watch this meeting at this point is we are open for tuition.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So any student in any district anywhere, they can tuition their students in here, as well as we're on the approved Freedom account list,
Yes, we are.
where a parent that qualifies for a Freedom account can send their students to
Yep.
Souhegan High School. So
Yep.
we are open and a very welcoming community.
Say that louder, Stephen O'Keefe. What
Yes.
can they do with those
They can
EFAs?
use their New
Right.
Hampshire-based Freedom account.
We'll take it right
Here at
here.
Souhegan High School. And they can
Yeah.
leverage the outstanding services that we provide our communities.
Thank you for the description, John. I'll make sure it's okay in the future.
All right. All right, if there's no other questions, we will move on to the board goal review. This is something that was asked for, and I think it's absolutely a good discussion to have. So in there is the list of the board goals we had put in. We somewhat aligned the 3 of them to the framework for progress at the time, and then put some bullet points underneath each of them. So what I'd like to do is what's the best way? Probably let's start with number 1, and I think we can use this as a reflection and then say, is it something we may want to continue? And we can, I think we need to set board goals separately, maybe next meeting, but I think this is a good start of a conversation to say, do we want to even consider keeping this one? Did we do enough? Did we not? How to maybe put something more measurable if we want in there? But let's start with the first one. It says support the continual improvement of curriculum instruction and assessment practices. So who would like to,
So,
Yep.
we could do it that way,
yeah, have a better suggestion?
not better. But Mr. O'Keefe sent me some very well thought out notes that just quickly cover all 3 that might be a good place to start and then circle back, so we don't have to call in first for each of the 3 goals.
Okay.
If you think so, Mr. O'Keefe.
Yeah, I mean, you just take a look at, I would want to understand what we did as a board to accomplish number 1. Not the administration, but what we did, the 7 of us.
Mhm.
And I can say that we received presentations, and the administration did an awesome job about giving us some of the data points to support and understand the mathematics program. We had a presentation for that last year. Receive updates, evaluations, implementing a freshman writing course. We received that actually, in terms of the proper update. Received updates, recommendations, ensuring Souhegan High School meets the needs of all learners. I don't know if we did a lot to do that, other than maybe talk a little bit about CTE, but that was just really passing sort of comments. Engage in conversation with SEU building administrators to understand Souhegan High School supports all learners. I would challenge everyone to say, maybe we did that a little bit with our principal reports and Dana sort of giving us an update, but other than that, on a precursor level, I don't know if the 7 of us did any of that. And number 2, creating a communication plan process, we didn't do that. Right, and so we didn't get anything effective out to the community. One of our members put something on the Amherst platform once, I think, and then it just dropped after that. We didn't create any type of internal communication plan process or standards. And then number 3, reviewing facility needs. I would challenge everyone to say, we didn't do that either, right? And so we didn't do anything to better support curriculum other than our budget process and receiving our monthly facility reports. Support the work to continue the renovation of the science
Did do
labs.
that.
We're actually doing that now, exactly. And that good work that's gonna be happening, especially with the subcommittee. And then we didn't do anything with solar at all. And
No, but I
unfortunately,
do have a question about the solar. Is there something that Mr. Fritz is talking to about solar? I understand that he's been involved in some solar discussion, but I don't know.
No.
No?
I
Okay.
think Roger has
solar's dropped.
No, Roger is exploring it and we actually are in contact with a company and kind of exploring some opportunities and Amy and Steve, if you want to talk a little bit more, Amy, I know you've had longer conversations.
But it's nothing that's been brought to us. So
But it
I
hasn't been
found out
brought-
for this accidentally, so we have not done anything ourselves.
Yeah, so again, this is a board goal, right?
Right.
This is us, the 7 of us. This has nothing to do with administration. This is what we do to hold ourselves accountable for what we do and what we're supposed to be doing. So the solar conversation, from my perspective now, I think we missed the boat, right? There's gonna be no federal grant money for that at all. And I don't know if the Amherst and Malvern and taxpayers want to front that type of money to go ahead and put that infrastructure in on a municipal level. That'll be a challenging sort of piece. I just don't know if that's a priority in 2025, 26, as it was or could have been last year for the 7 of us. So, and I know I sent Christy an email because she had asked me to do so. And, you know, when I brought up the goal sort of idea last year, it's how can the 7 of us more effectively communicate the power, the strength, and really the positive attributes of this institution to our community so they can understand what we're properly doing with their tax dollars, right? I don't think we did a good job with that. I just don't.
Yeah.
We take a look at community feedback about, you know, our school system over the last, 5-6 months. I think it was for the most part negative, right? And I think that falls on us that we can actually do a better job about communicating the success here. I sat in that performance last night and I'm really sad that Maya is not here because I gotta tell you right now, I was so proud to be affiliated with this place as a board member, sitting in that auditorium, seeing those kids up on that stage, one after another, after another, after another, putting their positive best foot forward. And Maya was a producer, she was a piano player, a saxophone player, a guitar player, and a singer, all in different groups. And that's just one component of what we do. And we don't share that. We don't. Like, we hear negative feedback about our math program. We just heard a great presentation about the things that they're doing to make it better, right? We heard about the writing program from some of our board members last year, and they were complaining about, is it needed, is it not needed, and the 3.0 whatever regulations coming from the state. You know, we always focus on the negative stuff, and we need to do a better job articulating what this place is doing right, because the community doesn't hear that stuff. And that, I think, has to be a board goal for us going forward. I kid you not, Dana, and I know John mentioned it a couple minutes early. There are freaking great things going on in this building. This community should absolutely be proud of the stuff that's going on at Souhegan High School. Is it different? Yeah, it's different. Are there problems? Of course there are problems. We have a very low dropout rate. We have kids that are going to school above average grades in higher education leaving this place. We've got a national merit scholarship that you just talked about. Like, I shouldn't have to say this at a board meeting. This is stuff that the community needs to know. And we, the 7 of us, need to do a better job of that. And James, I'm stealing your idea because it just totally hit home. Like, that as a goal for us, that should be the absolute #1 goal we put for this body going into the next calendar year. Sorry,
That.
Christy, very wordy. I
No,
didn't put
that's
that part right
exactly
into you.
what I want
But
you to get the
It
platform
was
for.
frustrating. the goal piece is important and we have to hold ourselves accountable to it.
I appreciate that. I do. So
So just a follow-up, Mr. O'Keefe. Would you recommend continuing or discontinuing any of the goals based on what you just told us?
Well, I have to be honest with you, from my perspective, solar should be out. Like, I just don't see it as being a viable thing and the amount of time and energy that the 7 of us needs to be doing. I think the number one goal should be, supporting our school community and communicating in an effective way about the positive things that are going on in this institution. I think that should be goal number one. And I'm gonna emphasize the word positive things because we focus way too much on the negative. And I'm gonna argue to say the negative is not really a lot, but we put a lot of bandwidth into it.
and I think we do hear a lot of the negative out there on Facebook, right? That's where it's being put out there.
Well, Facebook, so I don't see it, but
We see it a lot.
people talk to
And
me
it's-
and they say, oh, this and oh, that, and, nobody knew about that thing last night. Like, to see that, guys, like, as a participant and a parent of a kid, like, you're proud, but as a community member going in there and go, holy crap, we got talented people here.
Yeah.
And we're really encouraging and fostering that environment for them. It's beautiful, it really is.
So so I think we need to strategize around this. It's not,
It's
Very
not something that we're gonna do tonight,
no, we're not.
but
But we need to come together and figure out that, if everyone can kind of think about
Yeah.
ideas, strategies to come together on that, and I like things we do know. I know there's one person in town who's starting a newspaper again. I know there's a potential of something else starting in town or coming back in town that we can use as communication. It's gonna end up in everybody's mailbox.
James and I got our first communication out last month.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I think, and I'm just trying to figure out the best way, so we don't, I don't wanna waste time here. Going through that strategy, but if we can, everyone can kind of think about that, either send it to me. Ideas, and then maybe, I don't know if it's something we might be able to do in June as we come together and try and do form goals. We can actually put together some of those things. Hopefully the agenda for June is not quite as loaded as tonight's, which has a lot of information on it, a lot of discussion.
It might be a pretty.
Might be big, so it might end up being a meeting that was a separate
Well,
meeting we need to have to
we-
talk about goals, and it doesn't have to be
We have the retreat.
super heavy.
We have the retreat.
We have the retreat, there's a lot that could be discussed at the retreat, we need to look
We only
at
have
all that
2.5
on top
hours.
of, I have the list from last meeting of things that we want to talk about during other agendas, and this list gets bigger. So I want to make sure that we're strategizing, so I think Jim, you and I need to sit down and maybe look at the forward.
Yeah. The one thing I can, just by looking at the goals where, I wasn't part of it last year, so I'm afraid to comment because I'm not really sure what went into it, but any goals that we make need to have a high level of accountability around them, which is what you're talking about. I don't see any timing on the goals. I don't see any ways that we'll actually measure what we're gonna do to say that we were successful or not. And again, I've said this before, which is like when the larger community has questions about the why, you're always gonna get these questions. We're gonna be dogged by this and plagued by this until the larger why around what this school system wants to be when it grows up in the mind of the community, till we answer that question, this will be a constant refrain that we hear. And I've said before, you look at Bedford High School, they say right in their mission, let me see if I can capture it, but this school district's top priority is academic achievement. I believe that's exactly word for word what it says. So when you walk into Bedford, well, good or bad, I mean, Raj's kids go there, but good or ill, whatever. Parents and students and taxpayers know that is their number one priority above all else. Above all else. And again, I went to West High School, have friends who send their kids to Bedford schools. That's ingrained in what they do. They hire people around that, they drive it in their classroom. Again, I'm not saying that's what we want to do. But until we resolve, it's not just a Souhegan question, until we resolve what that is, and that's a board responsibility from my point of view, it's debatable, but I think you can argue that pretty persuasively based on what's written in the RSAs here in the state. That's our responsibility to just drive that discussion with the community. Till that's answered, we're always going to get that negative feedback, especially when you have people in our communities who are looking at big tax bills and want to bring them down. The easiest thing to do is shoot holes in what we're doing. You're always going to get that. You're always going to get that. But do we have parents and students and other people who are in these schools that go back out there and says, no, what this place is all about is this. This place is all about is this. That helps you more than anything that we can do to try to say, hey, look at the great things we're doing. We need those. We need those stakeholders that are here doing that. And the way you do that is by what I just said. So that's just my opinion. Easier said than done. But because of that, it's going to require a much bigger discussion, and probably more than a 2.5 hour discussion. 2.5 hours is not much of a retreat. That's more like, cocktail hour or 2.5 hour cocktail. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I see Raj, your hand's raised.
Yeah, thanks for that idea, the comments there, folks. I think that's one of the things that I am trying to understand is a little bit about, the "are we there yet" question is then, well, maybe where, but it depends on where we're going, right? And so making sure that it's really clear to the community where it is that we're going. And obviously we've got the framework. And so if that's the area, if that's the direction, great, cool. But I think what's interesting for me is we have 700 kids or so in the high school. That is a very small portion, and there will be some multi-kid families in there. Obviously, that's a very small portion of our town, and so trying to make sure that we are getting to the folks who don't have kids at all in the school system, folks who used to have kids in the school system, maybe parents of younger kids, and priming the pump with them in terms of what is coming, what's going to be next for their kids as they move through the system. Like, I'm really curious about what are the ways that we can do that in a way that we have to keep beating the drum way more times than we think we will have to. It's the way things work, that a leader may think that they've said it. Well, I've said it like 3 or 4 times. Well, you might have to say it 100 times before it will totally get ingrained. So I'm really fascinated by how we will manage that. So it's not I don't have a solution, but more just to emphasize. I think that's top of mind for me as well. And thank you for letting me ramble.
No, thank you. No, I understand where everyone's coming from, and if you'll give Jim and I some time to sit down and strategize best way to have a goals conversation, draft, look at stuff about communications, because I agree with you. I agree with you. There's a lot out there, and anything we can do is part of our responsibility. Talk about the school.
Well, and to your point earlier, charge the remaining 6 of us to really brainstorm about it.
Brainstorm, yeah. And then maybe we can structure a conversation.
I wouldn't be surprised if we're gonna have similar goals, right?
Yeah. And work together as accomplishing something. So thank you for that.
May I just throw a couple of thoughts into the mix?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Glover.
I'm just remembering former board member Pim Gronstra was always, and rightly so in my opinion, talking about making sure whatever goals we set were smart goals. Remember that, Stephen and others who were around when Pim was serving? And some of these that we had last year maybe aren't so smart in the sense of what Jim was talking, how do we measure them? What is the timing of them? Are they achievable in a one cycle? And maybe some of them should be more specific, like from the list that we generated at our last meeting. And Stephanie, would you send that list out to the rest of us just as it is, and we can maybe then, huh?
The list of topics.
the list of topics for discussion, because some of those could very easily turn into SMART goals. You know, I mean, some of them come to my mind, but we'll get the list. Those could be good fodder for goals. And if we keep that is something that we as board members can actually do, driving a conversation, obtaining information from the appropriate sources, and then having robust discussion and making decisions based on that information is well within our wheelhouse, and as a coming together as board members. So I'd like to maybe look at that and see how that can tie into achievable goals and SMART goals coming up for the next fiscal year.
So let me ask, we talked about the communication one as kind of a priority, which absolutely is. Do we want to explore other goals, like when we end up having a goal conversation, do we really want to focus on communication this year, or are there additional items that people feel are?
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot of ideas. I like Jim's idea of defining what we're doing, what's our purpose, and more importantly, what's the future that we as a board want to go and do and map out. I think digesting a lot of these discussion points tonight, and then coming back to whatever the two of you decide to do in terms of setting up a special meeting or putting it inside of a proper agenda item for a scheduled or uniform meeting. I think that's where we bring that next piece of the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I didn't want to get too much deeper. I think that we've.
Ask a quick question.
Absolutely.
Just a quick question. I'm assuming that as Stephanie and I get together, we need to continue to look through the lens of the framework for progress and tracking to that, right? So that there's alignment.
That is our goal.
Yeah.
The framework for progress is our goal.
Yeah, so.
And that's not the board goal, that's our district's goal.
Yeah.
That is what we're mapping in the pathway that we've created and adopted. And so now, what do we want to do as a body to support that and
Yeah.
define what we do and map that up? That's just my thought.
Yeah, I think if we support the framework for, I guess, it's framework for success, that we should also show how we're supporting the work for the framework for success. That work?
I think it does.
Okay.
Raj, John, did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
All right. All right, personnel. I'm going to assume we want to take this into non-public.
Yeah, we do, but as mentioned in personnel, there's 3 candidates we like to get their nominations approved by the board tonight. But I know there is a question or two that requires us to go non-public, so we can just move through the rest of the agenda, go into non-public, come
Yep.
back to this after.
Yep. And along with the one security questions as well. All right, committee updates. I'm just gonna go quickly. Policy meets tomorrow. Brick school maintenance, did that meet or is that meeting? Scheduled, okay. PPCs next week. Community council you've heard from. Constitutional Interpretation Subcommittee, Mr. Glover, I think you have something.
Yes, I do. I just sent an email to all the board members, superintendent and Danae. So hopefully, Danae, that'll make it easier to integrate into minutes. This is the report from the work done by the Constitutional Interpretation Committee, and I wrote up a little summary, and I'll just read it for the record. Just as some background, because we had some new members, back at our September 5th meeting last year, a motion was made to reaffirm the Constitution, which is our policy, C as in cat, E as in elephant. The board discussed the motion and passed the following, quote, to place on the agenda an update on the Constitution Interpretation Committee with an opportunity for board members to raise particular issues they would like the committee to consider. By our next meeting on October 3rd, the members of the committee had been chosen in accordance with the policy, which is thus: one student member elected by the entire student body. That person was Hannah Nagy. One faculty or staff member elected by the entire faculty and staff. That person was Steve Dreher. One member of the administrative team chosen by the administrative team. That person was Brad Botto. One member of the community council chosen by community council. That person was Jacob Emerson. And one school board member chosen by the school board, and that person was me. At the December 5th school board meeting, and due to some ambiguity regarding that previous motion about the scope of the, what I'll just call the CIC, the Constitution Interpretation Committee's work, the board clarified that motion by passing the following, quote, to ask the Interpretation Committee to review the current Constitution and compare it to the policies, procedures, and actions that are being followed within Souhegan at this time, and report back to this board to the extent to where it is being followed and or areas where it is not being followed. The CIC met at Souhegan High School in the following dates: October 28th, November 5th, December 2nd, January 6th, 2025, and March 3rd. The CIC's work involved each member reading policy CE and providing their feedback electronically on a reading protocol form that deconstructed the Constitution by article and section, and that asked each member to state whether they believed each was being followed and to provide any explanatory notes. Each member provided their feedback, and members present at the at the meetings were able to discuss their feedback in person. At the last meeting, or after the last meeting rather, I synthesized the feedback from all the members into the report that I just emailed to you. And some notes for the report: that there are some suggestions for clarification when ambiguities or inconsistencies were observed. There are some typos that were in the Constitution that are noted, and there are some questions that probably extend beyond the strict scope of the work asked for by the board, but they're included in the report nonetheless in an effort to faithfully and fully capture every member's feedback. So with that in mind, please review the report, and I hope to see it on next month's agenda, and we can discuss any observations or comments from board members or the public should they take it up to read it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate all the work that everyone did going through this, the team. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any overall questions for John before we have a chance to look at it? We'll put this on for further conversation.
I just got this 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, so I didn't know if there were any high level of questions anyone had of the procedure or process they went through or anything.
Thanks for the work, John.
You bet.
PTSA liaison? Is there anything going on? I know they used to have a lunch, I think, for the staff this week. Christina, is there anything?
I
heard from
haven't
them?
received anything from them. I haven't heard from them at all.
All right. John, New Hampshire School Board Association.
I mean, there's a lot going on, but I think we're being very well, informed on that from our administration, for our superintendent, led by our superintendent, about all these very rapid changes and unchanges and who knows what for the future. The NHSBA is involved in that, but I don't really have anything to add because I'm not in meetings with the attorneys and getting that advice directly. So I'll defer at this point to what we're receiving through our administrative team.
Okay. The Amherst Board of Selectmen, right now they have their hands full. They were part of the New Hampshire Interlocal Trust Health Management Group that unfortunately is closing their doors June 30th, so they're looking for a new healthcare provider. So they are working hard at that. They have lots of things on their plate right now. I've talked to the chair over a couple of different things, and is really nothing to bring to our attention that's happening with the schools, but the town has a lot of development going on and conversations like that. So that's high level with Amherst. Mr. O'Keefe, do you have anything with Town of Mount Vernon?
The only thing, just to be very transparent with everybody, in terms of the fiscal nature of our small hamlet up on the hill. I don't know if anyone read the Union Leader this week, but we got some pretty bad news about a NEH grant for our building project at our library, where the town's gonna have to come up with some solutions about how to meet almost $500,000 now in the budget shortfall. So as we think about all the things that we do and power through, and we just need to be very cognizant of they have real significant impacts on our small town. Gonna keep my fingers crossed that we can come up with some really positive ideas up there, and we've got some awesome people working on it, and we're gonna keep positive vibes going and flowing.
Thank you. Recreation Department, Mr. Glover, is there anything to report?
No.
Right. Facility lease negotiation
Got our first meeting coming up.
coming up.
Wednesday.
All right. Nothing with the budget committees, building and grounds. Mr. Gruber, Mr. Stroh, or anything going on with building and grounds right now?
I think active, we did receive a letter. I missed this. Previously.
The,
Education letter.
yes,
Association of schools and colleges.
yes, and I think there's somewhere is that.
It's in the
So it's in the superintendent's report. We'll talk about that then.
Right.
Yes. The other thing that we need to do that came out of the SAU meeting is we need to select one long-term planning committee member to work collaboratively with the other members selected. So it represents from our board to the long-term planning that works with Mike on the future of the framework for success.
I'd like to suggest that we give Mr. Stroher and Mr. O'Keefe first refusal, since I'll already be sitting on behalf of the SAU. And we might have Mount Vernon represented as well in the long-term planning.
This is physical infrastructure planning, or is this?
This is,
curriculum?
it's our long-term plan for,
For the working with Mike, our superintendent, with the framework for success in the next iteration of what it
but
was.
there's a facility aspect there, and a bunch of things. I think, we've been updating you all, but we could,
There's a
I'll
vision,
tell you a
there's
little
some
bit more.
vision work.
Anna was sitting, she was sitting on it, but she's no longer.
James, you're awesome with billing, so I'll give you first refusal.
And we do meet by Zoom if that helps.
I'm willing to, I can.
So, yeah, so it's not like a weekly thing, so it's.
Once a month, a month.
No, prep time.
Yeah.
This is
We
a,
know how it works.
this is a good collaborative
I'll be
committee.
the
You want to give it a try, and if one thing's too many,
I'm game.
let us know. But yeah, it'd be awesome to have
Thank you.
Mount Vernon representation and the Amherst representation, so.
It's not a heavy lift. So make
Yes.
people prepared. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Other business, is there?
Hold on, I'm sorry, it's hard to know when the time. On the board notes for the committee updates, it talks about two board members TBD to meet between May 12 and June 4th about the community represented. Are those TBDs? Are those Raj and James? Or they're different board members TBD? To
So I
review the
think that-
letters and present
Yeah, that
nominations
could
and all
be-
of that.
Actually, thank you for bringing that up because I did not scroll past that, which I should have. So it could be any two board members. Or we can just have the building and grounds members go ahead and make the selection. Is there a preference? And I'm okay with the building and grounds people
I-
working on it.
You guys don't want that extra burden. We can do something.
No,
else.
I would,
You guys should have to work.
I thought it was standard language and I was kind of assumed by up
Yeah.
top that.
You
Raj and myself.
would select the community members for the building and grounds.
And what we'll do is we'll work with Chelsea, as we receive
Mhm.
interest letters. We'll work with you to set up a time for you and Raj to review
We
that.
sent out a blast out to.
Yeah, with that,
districts.
yeah, we'll work on that. We have it timed.
And there was some communication already sent out.
There were
Talked
two,
about it.
two different types of communication sent out on this. I'll just give you an update. There's not a ton of interest.
I think we need to send it up. Blast
right
out
now.
some-
But we'll continue to work on that. We'll send
Yeah.
it out again. So, all three boards are looking to put these groups together, so we'll continue to communicate that out.
And we also have members for community council that we also announced at the same, kind of the same time. So there's multiple announcements going out for each school district about building and grounds as well as community council. So I think we have to resend it out again. I think every week, kind of get it out there right
And will
now.
these committee members be able to meet by Zoom? Or does it have to be in person?
Building and grounds.
Yeah,
The committee members. Yeah, okay.
pretty flexible.
Okay, so we will rely on Mr. Gupta and Mr. Schroeder to pick those people. Let us know.
Right.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Don't worry, we're no long.
Thank you for that, Mr. Glover.
You're welcome. And I
Find
guess,
out.
is it also true that all board members will be able to still see how many letters we get and be able to provide our own feedback should we choose to our two representatives?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yes.
fine.
Okay, good.
It's fine. It's just in a Google Doc. You'll see who's applied.
Okay.
All right. Other business, is there? And this is where if someone wants to add something for an agenda item, I will send out the list, the updated list, but is there anything that's on the top of someone's mind? And don't think has been mentioned that you would like us to look at adding to an agenda? Once, twice,
The only thing I just ask is, when we back on curriculum conversations, if we can put that into some sort of structure so we can refer to community people about that. It's like, what's next, right? So it's probably making up. We did science last, math this,
you've done.
special ed's next, right? And then
Or
maybe have a
arts,
presentation about
or-
CTE and stuff like that.
Yep.
So just like a structure, a
Yep.
formal structure, so we can be prepared and solicit feedback and so forth from the community.
Mhm.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we were thinking about summer work on that. Like as we get through
We only have
June,
one more meeting.
right,
Right.
so,
Right,
and I'm not sure how robust June will be, but, we do have that, on our list.
We do school clubs.
We do that, we put that, we'll put something on there.
An extra half an hour.
Yeah.
all right.
And
Super.
Stephanie, on other business, I just would say, I'd like to really see that list that we generated last time and then build off of that. So
Yeah.
that's great for other business, just to shore that up and fill that out.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, superintendent updates.
Couple quick things, I've been monitoring the rain all week around here. And I've been talking to the road agents in the morning and then throughout the days. We're close. We were close, but we've made it through and they've done a good job of monitoring, and keep me informed, so. But if questions came up, we are monitoring it. And so we got that. You see in the board notes, notification letter from NEASC, and I appreciate the work that we're doing around, the science work. So we're in good standing there. Don't have to do any work for a little bit with them. Just want to shout out to some of the work that's been happening during our standardized testing season, from starting with SAS on science and then to SATs and there was some new law testing, and then there was as we get an AP, it's really organized, and I think Dana and her group of people here are doing a good job with this. For me, it's important to make sure the environment is as good as it can be. It's as organized as it can be. The technology is on course where it needs to be. You have the right people in the room. That matters in my opinion, and they've done a really nice job here doing that. Jane and I talked the other day, you expect a graduation invite on June 13th, if you haven't got it already. It's Friday, June 13th, and put that on your radar, and you're welcome to attend, encouraged to attend graduation. More to come on that, and then I'll turn it over to And Mr. Chamberlain, he's been working with some of the HSA and HRA changes, with Amy and Amina, and, we'll brief little
Sure, just to
explanation what's happening.
FYI, part of our agreement with Health Trust is they do have the ability to do some structural changes to the plan. And one thing that they've changed for groups is what you find when you have a higher deductible plan and you fund the deductible, that actually reduces the effectiveness of the deductible and trying to make some stake in the game to actually control healthcare spending. So they made a policy that said districts cannot fund more than 50% of the deductible. We do have in our plans, the funding of more than 50% of the deductible. There was some grandfather situations regarding collective bargaining. They did not, they looked at PLRB, and PLRB does not list the PPC because it's by policy, it's not a collective bargaining agreement. So they have initially provided us with a non-grandfather status. Amina, Mike, and I, and Amy are appealing that decision with some strong assertive language. And they are in review of our appeal. And then, because what they've allowed people on our timing of collective bargaining, because we do collectively bargain, it's just not in a union agreement that based on the timing of announcing this, our last year negotiations would have been grandfathered. And then the next one would have been the change. We're trying to assert that situation because other districts, other organizations have that grandfather status. So if we don't get that, we will work collaboratively with the PPC to rectify this. It's just, okay, but expect this for, I think Jim and Raj are PPC, so expect this for discussion.
And I had an initial conversation with Charlie Swift regarding this, they're definitely interested in having a conversation with us and searching for a solution.
And we'll reach out to them to see if we can have an answer to them by.
That,
Well, I know it wasn't at the last meeting, Raj, there was at least somebody from the board there.
Stephanie.
so, well, with that said, that is it on superintendent updates for this evening. And,
Any questions?
I have one question.
Hold on 1 second, John.
No problem.
Sure. All right, go ahead, John.
On that last piece, I mean, on what authority does some other person have to tell us how we cannot provide a benefit to our employees? Honestly,
It's in our plan agreement. When we sign with Health Trust, it gives them that authority to make necessary substantive plan changes regarding the costs and structure of their job. Part of Health Trust job for everybody is to control costs. And when you overfund the deductible, you really reduce the ability of the deductible to help reduce costs for the entire pool. So because we're in a pool, what one group does to another group impacts the pool. So the authorization to do this is in our agreement with Health Trust.
okay, forgive my ignorance on this, or maybe it's ignorance, but from the insurance company's perspective, so long as the deductible is what it is and it gets paid, why do they care what the source of the funding is? If we're paying for it on our taxpayer money, or the employees are paying for it for their portion, what difference does it make? It's still the same deductible that's getting paid before more benefits are provided. So what difference does it make from the insurance company's perspective? I just don't understand the logic behind that.
Claims are pooled as well, so we share costs of certain threshold of insurance costs. So it's to the benefit to have a deductible increase the utilization, or to impact the utilization of insurance. So that's why companies go to high deductible. It's to impact utilization rate. And when the deductible exceeds, or the funding actually takes care of the deductible, it is contraindicated to the impact as desired on the rates and the premiums.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's an answer for sure. I won't belabor the point, but it's still not clear to me, and it's very upsetting. And I am glad that you're writing sternly worded letters to protect us and the way we conduct our business with our with our faculty and staff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Best case would have been to have this ahead of our negotiations and collaboratively solve this problem as opposed to unilaterally directed to solve this problem outside of the collective bargaining process. That is our issue.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just have to say, there's a lot I've learned about these risk pools in our state. They fall under the Secretary of State, under what's called Rule 5B. They're not insurance. They're risk pools. And because the Secretary of State oversees them, they are run very differently. And they're not a healthcare company or insurance as you think of them.
So is
There's
it worthwhile then to send a not a sternly worded letter, but a plea letter to the Secretary of State and say, please get out of our business? I mean, can you, for a rule
John-
change, could we advocate for that? Yeah.
There's a lot going on with these 5Bs right now at the state level. There's a Senate bill that's addressing them, and might probably being held in committee because there's a lot of work being done on it. I can go into details at another time because it could go on and on and on. There were over 5 hours of testimony on this so far. So I can get with you and tell you a lot of what's going on, but a short answer is no, it's not gonna happen. It won't work. It's not effective right now.
I'm optimistic
Unfortunately.
that they will see our views.
Yeah.
But we'll keep you
Yeah.
posted.
The best course is doing what they're doing here, is send a letter and see if they can appeal.
Okay.
I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mike?
I had a question.
Yes.
Mr. Barry, you said you were monitoring, is that high water?
Yeah,
areas?
This is Boston Post and next to the school, it's susceptible to high water with the river and then the flood zone.
Is there any maintenance that needs to be done?
The
related to
town
the
takes
town?
pretty good care of it. It's the town thing. We just monitor it because it has access to we need the access to the road to get to the school, so it's the town thing.
Is the town, when's the last time the town did an assessment on the creek?
Oh, they're probably out there
Oh,
on
yeah.
an hourly basis.
You mean for this weather event or
No,
prospectively? I don't even know, but it floods all the time because the road grade is level with the floodplain, so. Yeah.
Should have built a better road.
Yeah. The road really needs to be raised, in that area, probably another 2 feet,
Everybody remembers Mother's Day floods.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why you're on
Culverts,
stage.
yeah.
Now it's not there.
Have culverts running in that road. It's not. It's level with the floodplain.
We have one.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Before we go into non-public, we'll do public input 2 of 2. There is nobody in the room. There is somebody online. If they have any interest in making any comments, please raise your hand and we'll be able to promote you to panelist.
No hand raised, Madam
Not seeing
Chair.
a hand, going once, going twice. All right, we will I have a motion to go into non-public, please.
Motion to go into non-public under personnel, right?
Under RSA 91A2B and I.
Oh, nice job with the eye.
Thank you.
You got a ding on the eye.
Thank you. I is security.
Love the eye.
Okay.
All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna stop.
All right.